My 29-year-old boyfriend moved into my house, which I, a 28-year-old woman, owned. After several early fights about money in January, we decided to stick to a household budget. He also committed to clearing his credit card debt. My personal spending is more flexible now than it was when we first moved in. My partner told me that when he was younger, he had always dreamed of living in a house that was completely decked out for trick-or-treating and gave out large candies. I made the mistake of seeing this as a remark rather than a plan. He believed we had savings for this when we visited the Halloween store at the end of September. We discussed our monthly spending plan jointly, and I was unaware that it was never mentioned. We got into a fight when he realized there were no Halloween savings. After that, I spoke with friends, and they all reported that he had talked a lot about trick-or-treating and its significance. I put this one down to a miscommunication on my part. I thus took $500 of my own money and went to apologize to him. He spent $300 to $500 on one large component, an animatronic clown, and some lights, plus he added a small amount to his personal credit card. He was upset that I refused to charge it to my credit card and requested another large piece. When I inquired if he wanted to hang spider webs or handcrafted decorations, he stated it would look tacky. A few weeks later, candy got between us in an argument. He continued to only purchase full-size bars. We simply don't have that much money, even though we easily receive over 250 trick-or-treaters. So, we acquired 2 large bags of high-quality little bars. Additionally, I have these tiny coloring books for children with allergies and diabetes. Fast forward to Halloween, he is letting the early children grab handfuls when they arrive. I became really irritated and warned him that there were a ton of trick-or-treaters coming. After getting the pizza I had ordered for us, I spent approximately 10 minutes inside. The trick-or-treat bowls were empty by the time I returned. He distributed all of the coloring books to any child that happened to come along, throwing a 30 bowl into each child's bag. Then he told me I would have to use my credit card to rush out and buy more candy. I told him that it wasn't my fault and that I wasn't going to do that. He had just given out 20 pounds of sweets. I advised him to go inside when he began yelling in front of the children. In response, he said that even in the absence of candy, he would still go trick-or-treating. I stepped inside and told him to go have fun with a clown. After he had been here for 15 minutes, he insisted that I go for evening so he could have some alone time. He claimed that since I had already eaten, it was fair and that it was my responsibility since my cheap nature destroyed the trick-or-treat festivities. I refused to give him the remaining pizza. He departed to go to a friend's place, and I imagine that's where they drank, gave out candy for trick-or-treating, and texted me about how terrible and cheap I am for the rest of the evening. Do I look like an a-hole? Before reading the update, these were the most popular remarks, not a-hole. I get the impression that you're his ATM rather than his girlfriend. Really, he still hasn't gotten over whatever problems caused him to accrue so much credit card debt in the first place. Instead of improving his credit score, he's planning to destroy yours. A large portion of the debt makes sense. His parents abandoned him when he was 18, leaving him penniless. He was raised in foster care for a portion of his life. In actuality, he took on debt early to cover his necessities. Never actually acquired financial literacy skills. He didn't begin paying more than the minimum on his obligations or making efforts to get out of them until I brought it up to him. But what does he provide your relationship in return? Does he participate in any manner, pay his rent, pay his expenses, or are you attempting to save and transform him? People frequently fall into the trap of attempting to alter their significant other, which rarely succeeds. You ultimately lose half of your life to them. You should be well aware of your boyfriend's character based on the fact that he fled and sobbed to his friend and that they practically texted you to tell you how awful you are. I established a monthly house budget that only covers shared expenses after our first month-long disagreement, and he has been contributing half of it ever since, as well as electricity, mortgage, etc. I have a more flexible personal budget and save more money because so much of his money is going towards debt. However, he does contribute monetarily, and, as he was obsessed with maintaining a flawless lawn all summer, he is not unusable around the home. He thought we had money set up for this. He wasn't, as he didn't make any contributions to any savings account for this. He thought you were going to give in and pay for it, and she did, though not to his satisfaction. He is not going to change. Now for the update. I wrote an AITA on something that happened to my boyfriend around the beginning of November. He claimed that me destroying trick-or-treating was my fault, despite having spent a fortune on Halloween decorations. I'm posting an update here since I wasn't sure where to put it. Online, pretty much everyone, and I mean everyone, said I was correct and made some really awful comments about my relationship. I'll be honest, there was a lot of resentment towards him. When calls for more information began to come in from real news sites, I kind of gave up. I simply chose to log out and ignore anything that had ever happened. He had spent a few nights at his friend's house, so we met the next day. I indicated we needed couples counseling if we wanted to move forward, and I expected him to arrange the whole thing. Surprisingly, he agreed to this and promised to work on it. And that's when everything went wrong. Our shared pals had been genuine in supporting him, casting doubt on me. However, I discovered that the account he had given them was wildly inaccurate. In his version, I had saved up all my money for Halloween, bought inexpensive candy for trick-or-treaters, and was exclusively giving it to those I loved. The support came to me when they had heard my account, which was supported by receipts and photos. His buddies have actually been making fun of him a lot for the way he acted, which my now ex detests. He had been trying to get us counseling in the interim, but he discovered that using his insurance for therapy would result in waiting lists that would last months. Instead, he suggested the religious coach of this couple. Though I wasn't delighted about it and am not religious, I reasoned that it was better than nothing. It took us just 3 days after I posted for us to meet. One amusing thing that happened was that the coach complimented my ex for quickly handing over a printout of the home budget. However, the coach believed that I wasn't adhering to it and that my ex was the one who wrote it. What happened next was this strange situation where my ex, who despises the budget, wants a coach to disparage it while simultaneously demanding all the credit. Although the coach loved the budget in and of itself, it took the better part of the first session to convey the true scenario to him. He also found it odd that a woman in a relationship was controlling money. Actually, this was a lot of problems later. When one of our friends forwarded a Reddit article to my ex the following day, he went crazy, accusing me of betraying his trust. That was the topic of our next couples coaching session, and to be honest, I felt awful for bringing up his unclean laundry. At this point, I was heavily criticized by the coach and my ex for having publicly embarrassed him. Of course, I'm upgrading since I no longer care to humiliate my former partner. He will most likely read this as he uses this username. Whatever. At first, there seemed to be a benefit to coaching when the coach brought up how my ex's upbringing had prevented him from ever being able to celebrate holidays. Since I truly felt horrible about it, when Christmas approached, I tried very hard to include him in our family's customs and to find out if he had any requests. In response, he trashed my family's customs and offered only one, extremely lavish suggestion that would have cost a small fortune. I vouched that he did this solely to disparage me after I refused. Our twice-weekly appointments to the couple's coach, whom I detested more and more, served as the bookends to all of this. He would be quite devout and would have problems with us cohabiting before getting married. My ex and I didn't have a good response to this, but he would get extremely worked up when a coach brought up the topic of more sexist males hitting households. My ex claimed that I was undermining his efforts to receive therapy when I mentioned that I would want to move to a regular therapist. Nothing little occurred there that would have led me to end the relationship. However, last week truly was the tipping point. My former partner has become fascinated with browsing through my phone ever since he came upon a post I had posted on Reddit. But I wouldn't let him because of my career. I have a ton of emails and phone access to private information related to my job. I offered to show him at any time if he asked who I was texting, etc., as a compromise. This was insufficient. I have no idea how he gained access to my phone, but he went through it all and became furious that I was withholding stuff from him. But that was all unrelated to him. In a group chat I was a part of, we were organizing a bridal shower for a friend. This friend he's just met in passing. He was upset that I hadn't given him every detail even though he knew I was helping with the planning. To be more precise, we were bringing in the bride's aunt, who she doesn't often see, via plane. I didn't have a financial stake in this, I only knew about it. Additionally, I don't know why I didn't disclose him that one small detail, that it was keeping secrets. When we went to a party with friends, we were still at odds over this. It seems that when going over my past conversations, he came across one where one of my friends confided in me about a tragedy she had experienced. The only people who truly knew were her sisters and spouse. When my ex was intoxicated, he began chatting loudly to her and her husband was present. Her spouse urged her to stop talking, but my ex became arrogant, declaring that everything was known and that there were no secrets. It verged on becoming a brawl. He looks genuinely surprised that we split up, even though I ordered him not to return to my place after that. He's not coming back, even though I'm still in shock about everything. I recall that posting. I apologize for his being such a loser. Not a single item about the update is surprising, especially considering how strange and whiny the whole Halloween thing was of him. It's so difficult to picture yourself as the one sharing these tales and experiencing such widespread criticism of your partner. That guy was garbage, but I can't imagine being able to end a relationship over the views of total strangers. I'm very relieved that you're no longer under the tyranny of that individual, and I hope he receives the support he requires. We can utter the words, but he won't. I just read your initial post again. I just wanted to add the strange $500 lawn clown that I had entirely forgotten about. I suppose you may as well. Unfortunately, you are unable to return the X and obtain a refund. You come to mind. Even before I went back and reread your initial post, I knew exactly who you are. Firstly, I'm relieved that you split up. You truly do merit better. Although you both certainly have some positive qualities, your relationship was ruined by his lack of responsibility, excessive sense of entitlement, and incapacity to manage money. It appears that he was emotionally harmed by his experience in foster care, and he is attempting to make up for it by treating himself to pricey items. Don't allow him to manipulate you into giving him back, please. He'll make every conceivable pledge to change, stick to a budget, seek therapy, etc. However, the truth is that he needs counseling, but he needs to receive it for himself, not to maintain your relationship. Since he truly doesn't see anything wrong with him as he is right now, he will do whatever it takes to keep you interested before reverting to his previous behavior. He's not old enough to be in a relationship, and if you bring him back, it won't benefit him in any way. He must learn how to live as an adult and take care of himself. Furthermore, it sounds like he may easily obtain credit cards or loans behind your back, so you should definitely monitor your credit score. I'm wishing you luck and plenty of virtual hugs. You are welcome to ask for help at any time in this friendly community. Yes, OP, freeze your credit at 1000%. You have no idea what else he may have spied on if he looked through your phone. Additionally, I would advise upgrading your security questions with information that he is unaware of and changing your passwords. Though it's unlikely that he will take action, it's better to be safe than sorry. Last but not least, even though I offer to be the designated driver, am I really so bad at leaving my partner and his pals behind? My boyfriend of 4 years, a 33-year-old man, is an avid football enthusiast and celebrates the Super Bowl by gathering with his high school pals at a bar each year. Since some of these pals are busy with their kids and lives, it's frequently the only time he gets to see them in a year. I'm glad I can leave him somewhere, enjoy a quiet evening, and pick him up when he's ready to go home because I don't like football. When he's out with his group, he usually drinks excessively. I went to the pub last night after receiving a text from my boyfriend saying he was almost ready to be picked up. Not that he was as ready as he claimed to be. I went in and sat down with them as they finished their rounds of drinks, and the end. He was fairly inebriated when he started acting handsy in a way that I found uncomfortable in public. I implored him to stop, naively. I leant in to beg him to stop whispering in his ears since I didn't want to cause a scene. He couldn't, but it's always been a fantasy. He became enraged and muttered back, "You should consider yourself lucky that I'm going home with you. I could go home with any woman here if I wanted to." Dreamer, LOL. He had never said anything like that to me before, so I was shocked. Even though he was intoxicated, I became enraged and excused myself, pretending to be going to the restroom. In the end, I texted him to let him know that I had departed. Regretfully, he had made plans for me to take 2 of his pals home as well. Wouldn't have been a problem, but he hadn't told me that either. Rather than contacting a taxi or Uber, as I had presumed, one of his pals made a call to his spouse. In order to go pick them up, the wife had to rouse their toddler. When he got home, and even now, my lover is still enraged. Before he left for work, we had a disagreement and he pouted on a couch. He says I just got up and left, which embarrassed him. He fiercely disputes stating what he said, says he didn't get handsy, and maintains that he wasn't that inebriated the previous evening. The wife also sent me a furious text, calling me a jerk for abandoning them when they were intoxicated and making her wake her child so she could go get them. She also called me out in an ambiguous, passive-aggressive Facebook post. I'm wondering now if I overreacted. Given that he was inebriated and had kept his word, perhaps I ought to have ignored his remark. I requested him to cease doing something that was uncomfortable, and I felt so disrespected by his response. So, did I make the correct decision by abandoning my inebriated boyfriend and his friends after the Super Bowl? Let's go to the comments now. Growing up with an alcoholic parent does not teach you that what someone says when they are intoxicated is always what they truly believe. Now that the filters are gone, they think it's terrible that people are justifying the terrible things that inebriated people say. The alcohol released the words, it did not make them. Regretfully, you are right. My alcoholic ex finally told me he loved his ex from his time and service overseas more than he would ever love me, and that's when I learned this lesson. He never asked her to take other friends home, even in the absence of that information. She rationally assumed that it would take an Uber. The friend and his child managed to arrange a safe ride-sharing arrangement without needing to wake his spouse and child. He wants a hotter girlfriend and doesn't love her, therefore she's being made fun of. In actuality, he just told her that. Not the jerk. You wouldn't be an a-hole to yourself if you didn't stay with your partner. He started the first argument by requesting that you fetch him, then insulting you by being unprepared when you arrived. It was really kind of you to remain for as long as you did. 1 strike. Then it started to feel uneasy and told you to be thankful for it since it might disappear at any time. That's just him being a complete jerk. 2 strikes. Then he became mad with you, refusing to admit what a giant asshole he was and not standing up for you in front of his friends and their wives. She's rightfully furious, and she was probably misled about your departure, so she's angry at the wrong person, but your partner is to blame for that. 3 strikes. You might probably think of a few more positive traits about him that we haven't covered here. How they would make up for his disrespect is beyond me.